5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Hi, thanks for joining us on the GHT Overland Podcast, where we visit with overland travelers around the globe, asking them about the finer details of overland travel, learning from their experiences, passing on their tips, and enjoying their inspiring stories from the road. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lisa. We're from Washougal in Washington State, known as the gateway to the Columbia River Gorge. This week's featured guest is Bob Wohlers, the owner of Off-Road Safety Academy. Bob is the 4x4 training columnist for Outdoor 4x magazine, an outdoorsman, and the author of 2 extremely valuable adventure info books. Live Long to Wander, a book on basic survival for vehicle-supported adventure, and Raising Your 4-Wheel Drive Vehicle Off-Road and In-Field Tire Repair, covering effective use of the high lift jack along with inflatable hydraulic, screw, and scissor jacks. Whew.
It's a lot of information.
He's full of information.
Well, hey, you need to have this information with you. And when you're on a overland adventure, these are the 2 Bibles of how to do these repairs and how to do survival, how to get help. They're beyond amazing. You need to pick up these books. So listen to the episode. There's a ton of really good information that we go through and that Bob gives us. It's just a wonderful episode and an absolute treat to sit down and talk to Bob. So let's jump into this interview. We're talking to Bob live in his 4-wheel drive camper at the Northwest Overland Rally. I think we got it. Are you ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Well, Bob, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
My pleasure.
Absolutely humbled that you would do that.
Me too.
At the Northwest Overland Rally in your camper. So we've got really good audio, thankfully, out there in the wind. That was getting a little crazy on Saturday night. People are getting a little loud, so thanks for letting us come in.
Gotta love my camper.
Yeah.
4-wheel drive pop-up camper.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So nice, comfortable quarters. So, Bob, give us a little bit about your background and what you've done and where you're coming from today.
Well, let me start with a past life. So in my past life, I worked for 35 years as the VP of production for PADI, the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. So I have a marine biology degree with a physics degree, a minor, and a chemistry minor. And that marine biology degree led me to recreational scuba. For 35 years, I wrote most of the books for PADI. I managed the team that produced all the educational materials. So it would be the video shooters, the editors, the layout artists who laid out the books. So this was all for scuba instructors. And if you know anything about scuba diving, it's very organized. The training is very professional. And I had the honor and privilege to work for the family that owned PADI.
Okay.
It recently got sold for $700 million, so that tells you how big that company is. Yeah. And from that company and from that recreation, I took away a discipline, and that discipline was adult education. So as a scuba diver, the family, I have 2 kids, and we used to go diving quite a bit in the Sea of Cortez, family vacations to the deserts. We did off-roading as a family endeavor. And then the trips started to get to be more elaborate for work and for pleasure, like Cairo to Hurghada in the Sinai, and diving the Red Sea and going up from Hurghada, which is in the Sinai in Egypt, up to Eilat, which is the southernmost city of Israel, and diving again the Red Sea. So I've been off-roading in a lot of different countries, even South Africa, around Cape Town, and diving the beaches off there and that kind of thing. Yeah. So really an extensive off-road background. So with PADI, we were doing adult ed.
Okay.
We were writing instructor programs for the instructors to teach from, curriculum for them to teach them, and books for the students.
Perfect. Okay.
And as I started to get deeper into the off-road industry as a consumer, I saw a real need for professional training, like what we did with Patty for the off-road community. And it led me to a point where, Chris, I could not sleep at night anymore, thinking about the opportunities of doing, in some way, replicating what we've done for diving to bring that education to off-roading. So I ended up, when Patty got sold to private equity, I just saw a time to jump ship and not sleep better at night, right? So that and get into another endeavor and start my own company, because everybody wants to start their own company, don't they? I mean, it's a dream of most people. Yeah. So Blue Sky Adventures is the S Corp in California. My DBA is Off-Road Safety Academy. And I started that because I saw this need, like I said. And whenever the kids and the missus and I would go out and off-road, we often, and I don't want to say every trip that we went on, but often we would run into people that were in the backcountry in a four-wheel drive and didn't know what they were doing. And we would have to rescue them. And I mean that humbly. I was humbled to help them. But nevertheless, it interrupted our vacation. I said, why aren't these people learning something before they go out? So I just saw a market need, right? And then I started reading all the books I could. And of course, I had a lot of them anyway, because I'm a reader. So I just looked around and at the training that was going on at the time, and I said, maybe there's an opportunity for something different. Maybe not better, but different. Maybe more professional. Maybe something that is at a higher level. And that's what led me into Blue Sky Adventures and to Off-Road Safety Academy. And it's been going pretty good so far.
How many clinics have you done at the rally?
I'll do 3 here and 4 up in BC.
Okay.
So
they're all packed.
They're packed. And it's really a privilege, because they're so thankful, because there's nothing. And I just feel honored to teach them how to be safer in the backcountry.
Okay.
At Overland Expo, which I teach at every year, I do a water disinfection clinic so they can source natural water when they're in the backcountry without getting bacteria, viruses, protozoa. I teach survival courses. I'm a wilderness first aid instructor, so I teach a lot of wilderness first aid to my government clients, which are my rangers and my science people at some of the Southwest National Parks.
Okay.
And then we teach four-wheel drive safety too. So that's kind of a combo package to keep the rangers and the science people a little bit safer in the backcountry. Okay. And that's a real privilege too. And I also teach corporately with AT&T and T-Mobile are 2 clients that I've taught multiple courses for. The technicians that have to drive off-road to get up to the cell towers in remote areas to do their work up there, those companies just don't want their vehicles damaged or their employees hurt. Yep. So it's an honor to teach them as well.
Okay. What are some of the first things people should be focused at learning before they take their first big trip, and making sure that they've got that knowledge base down?
Great question. I mean, head knowledge is good, but there's no substitute for taking that head knowledge and putting it into skills. So here at the events that I do, like here at Northwest Overland Rally, the BC Overland Rally, Overland Expo in Arizona, which is a big event, and I'm also teaching at the Big Sky Overland Rally, which is in Montana. That's their first year this year. So really what they need is they need the skills. A lot of them have some head knowledge from some readings, but some of them pick up bad skills from like YouTube and other things. So when they come to these events and I'm able to teach them live, then we're actually putting our hands on equipment.
Yeah, because I saw that you get people hands-on. You're not the instructor that just shows them how to do it.
I'm a coach.
You are standing back and coaching the other people on physically doing the work.
Great point, Chris. When you saw that clinic, I was a coach.
Yep.
And that's really the way to run a skill session, in my opinion, is not talking or even doing it myself. If I do it, they don't learn nothing. That's my common phrase that I always say. I'm just the coach. I'm going between station and say, I like to set up stations. Okay, over here we're doing this, over here we're doing this, and people can rotate between those stations. They're all kind of doing the same thing, but they're multiple work areas.
Yep.
And everybody's putting their hands on the equipment and doing the skills with that equipment.
Okay.
So they're using their head knowledge that I'm trying to impart to them. And sometimes I'll demonstrate something and then they'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to do it because that's adult theory, right? I hear, I forget.
Yep.
I do, I learn. I do it and I experience it, then I kind of really remember it.
And hopefully they go home and repeat some of those things
Exactly.
to really cement it in.
Right. And the books are written more in preparation for coming to the skill session. But if they don't read it before they come, then they take it away. And of course, all of these skills are perishable, right? They're all perishable. It's like gun handling skills or scuba diving skills. You need to do it once in a while. So the books are meant and designed in the right size that they are to go in their glove compartment. Perfect. So they actually take it with them out in the field. Mm-hmm. And eventually we're going to have a series of slates. So they can leave the books at home and take the step-by-step methods without the pictures now with the slates that go in their glove compartment. So they can use them in the rain. And, you know, these meltdowns don't always happen in good conditions, right? Nope. It could be snowing, it could be windy, it could be rainy. So a plastic slate or waterproof paper, that's what we're going to produce, the step-by-step stuff, the important things.
Very good. So that sounds really good. So if somebody's taken those, and of course the preference would be that they practice them often, right? Yeah. So that they've got those skill sets. But in the event, because we know that all people don't do that, right, they can take these books or these slates with them, and they've got a good reference point. I don't have a spare tire. I need to plug the tire. Right. Or I need to, what did you reference on the side?
A sidewall tear.
A sidewall tear.
And we taught them how to plug a small sidewall tear and a large sidewall tear.
Yep. So to have those reference points so that they can
step by step in the book. Yeah, step by step.
Okay. So one of those primary skills, they need to know how to change a tire. They need to know how to fix a flat tire. What were the other key points that you hit in the classes this weekend that you think that they really should not leave home without those skills?
Boy, there's so many of those. That's why the 2-day beginning 4-wheel drive course is so important. But your question is really good, and it's hard to put them in priority order. I think the tire clinic is very popular because most people recognize that tires are probably going to be their first, air fingers quote, meltdown in the backcountry, right? A tire a flat tire is probably going to be their first problem. So a lot of people raise their vehicle, put bigger tires on it, and sometimes their stock jack won't even reach the vehicle anymore. So we try to get them to pull their stock jack out of their vehicle. You notice we had a lot of vehicles out here. Yeah. I wished I could have more out there so that every person that attended had their own vehicle. They would go to their vehicle. This is the way I do it in my classes. I don't have time in the clinics because they're only 2 hours here. But in my classes, they're actually using their vehicle. They're getting their jack. They're raising it up. They're breaking the lug nuts. They're taking off a tire. They're plugging it. They're doing the repairs that we teach them how to do, and then they're putting them back on. So tire kit, tire repair kit, tire tools, repair tools are important. But it isn't just about, Chris, it isn't just about getting unstuck. It's about, in my 2-day course, it's teaching them not to get stuck. No, that's perfect. The most important thing. Right? That's the preference. Yeah. So here at the clinics, they're 2 hours apiece. So most people want to focus on how to get unstuck. But the wonderful thing about here that you may not have seen, or maybe you have, over here in the wooded area, they have an obstacle course. Mm-hmm. So now my friends that are over there, the Land Rover trainers, Chris and Paul and Jim, they're all over there teaching people driving skills. So I do that in my class too. We teach them not to get stuck and teach them the limitations of their vehicles. And they need to wrap their brain around that vehicle. They need to measure how high the lowest hanging fruit is underneath their vehicle. They actually, in my classes, get under there with a tape measure and see how big of a rock they can run under their vehicle without it hitting something.
Yeah, that
important.
practical experience is really good. I think it was Chris. I do a lot of search and rescue volunteer work, and he led a class a couple of years ago with also, this is what your vehicle can do. This is how you get into these places that may not have a road or a trail to get into.
Right. He owns BC Overlanding, and he's just a great guy. All those trainers, in fact, all the trainers are here. I admire them. Yeah. And I learn things from them, and I think they learn things from me, and we're always sharing back and forth. It's a pretty tight trainer community.
So of the three guys that are out there, which one is a firefighter?
Is that Jim?
Maybe it was Jim.
It was Jim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super great guy.
Super great guy.
And his knowledge on the vehicle recovery, because he knew all the points that were strong on the vehicle to be able to like pull a vehicle up out of a ditch.
He's a Camel Trophy guy. If you know about the Camel Trophy races that Land Rover used to sponsor and Camel Cigarettes used to sponsor, I mean, that's a fabulous race. It's a race. And he was a part of that. So I wasn't in that industry. I wasn't in the off-road industry at that time, but I wished I had been, because I would have loved to have been one of those team members.
That practical experience is really important. So I think if people are not able to go to one of your clinics, at minimum, they should pick up a book, right? They should gain the experience in their driveway, start doing some of these things as practice before they have to do them. Question for you. From a lot of interviews that we do, I hear two different things. A high lift jack is a way to go, and a bottle jack is a way to go. What's your theory?
As I told my tire clinics, because the first thing I need to teach them is how to raise their vehicle safely and effectively in compression terrain, sand, snow, mud, and in the rocks. So those are the terrains that you have, and they're very dangerous, slippery, sometimes icy surfaces to lift a very heavy vehicle oftentimes and to get them up. Now, to answer your question directly, a high lift jack has a lot of utility, but in my humble opinion, and it's my opinion, the high lift jack is not the go-to jack to change a tire, because a lot of times when you lift from the front bumper or from a side rock rail, which is where a high lift jack can appropriately go, and you have to have an aftermarket front bumper to really lift effectively with a high lift. You can't do it on a stock bumper. It'll just crush it or break it because it's either aluminum or plastic. So if it's an aftermarket front bumper and a side slider, you can lift a wheel very close to that wheel with the high lift jack. The problem is that with the suspensions these days, especially an independent front suspension, and you're lifting a front wheel, it droops. And it will continue to articulate downward, and you have to lift the vehicle so high up with a high lift jack from the side to get that wheel off the ground that now you've got a dangerous situation by lifting a vehicle really high. I would prefer to use a bottle jack to lift from the axle to lift that wheel directly off the ground, so I don't have to go up very high to get that tire completely off.
Just enough to get that
Just
tire
enough
off
to get it off. But that doesn't belittle or berate the high lift jack, because it can do so many other things. It can be used as a hand winch, as I taught my clinic this morning, my non-powered winching recovery clinic, which is every type of recovery except for power winching. And part of that factors mightily by just using a high lift jack to winch a vehicle backwards. You may have a winch in the front of your vehicle to pull you out to go forward, but to go backwards, if the trail continues to grade in front of you and you're stuck, you just want to go back a few feet, turn around and call it a day, right? You got to call it a day. So the jack has that utility. It also can jack up if you're high centered on a rock or on a berm in a truck or a vehicle, and you want to not drag that terrain, that rock underneath important underbody components like a drive shaft or an oil pan or a differential. You don't want to bang it. You can lift the vehicle up off that object and drive forward. The jack will fall and you can get off that high center. So I'm just naming a couple of utilities of that high lift jack. I don't leave without it. I always use it.
I'm going to guess you're going to carry both of those with you, right?
I actually, as I told my tire clinic folks, I carry 3. Realistically, I carry 3 jacks with me every time I recreationally overland or off-road. I carry my high lift jack. I carry my stock jack because it's put away already.
Oh, sure. Good
And
point.
I carry an inflatable jack, the X jack, which inflates with the exhaust of a vehicle.
That was really interesting. I've not seen that before. I was just assuming they were like an electric pump or some other thing.
Yeah.
But to see him holding that up to the exhaust and why is he holding that to the exhaust? I don't get it. And then after you guys were done, I saw that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, now I get it. And it doesn't require some other electronic piece of equipment.
It's 3 feet across with it's a round donut. And it has such a great footprint, and it conforms to the terrain. And it also conforms to the underbody of the vehicle, as long as you're not putting on a sharp or hot object underneath it. And it can raise the vehicle. And the instructions from the manufacturer say don't change a tire with this piece of equipment, but really is a really good piece. That's a lawyer speaking, but it really is a great jack to change a tire. Okay. I still prefer a bottle jack right on the axle to change a tire, but it depends on the terrain. Yep. It really is it sand, snow, mud? Is it uneven? Is it rocky? You have to choose your jack. And so that's why I carry 3 jacks.
Okay, great. I've got another one for you. We talked to a couple a few weeks ago. They were in the Bolivia salt flats.
Okay.
They got stuck.
Yep.
They had a winch. Mm-hmm. They had a tire. Mm-hmm. They buried the tire. That didn't work.
Yeah.
But they said the salt was super wet and it just would not stay in where they put it. Yeah. And they were stuck for 3 days. They had no traction mats of any kind. They
had no max tracks or treads
So they had to hike to the nearest village, city, whatever it was.
Heavens.
And it was a wonderful story to hear.
Yeah.
Because it ended well.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is good.
But in a perfect world, if you were to retake that trip with them or advise them on what to do different, what would that be?
Well, I've been in a couple of salt flats.
Okay.
There's a real good one on the other side of the Mojave Road, and it's a real bad salt flat. And you can do exactly the same thing. The other one that I've been in is in Saline Valley, which is in Death Valley National Park, and it's a bad salt flat, and it's usually moist. It's really gooey mud. It's really hard to get out. I would have used my bridging ladders or my max tracks. Bridging ladders are rigid aluminum. They're like a small ladder. Yep. They're just what they say. And they give you increased traction. You would put it under the tire and try to drive and get some momentum and get going again. Max tracks would be the same kind of thing, to get traction under the wheels. If that didn't work, I have a device that I always have carried with me since I got stuck in a sand dune area one time, and it's called a pull pal. And instead of burying a tire, this is a commercial land anchor. Yep. And it's in 2 parts. It's on the back of my camper. I've mounted it. I don't go anywhere without it because it's like a brick of gold. A winch is only as good as an anchor point. So if you're in a sand dune or on a salt flat where there's no tree to attach to as an anchor point, there's no other vehicle to attach to, which I'm assuming that this couple, there was no other vehicles with them.
By themselves.
Yeah, so they were in Bolivia, you said?
Yep.
So they're what I call RSI, remote, solo, and international. It doesn't get any worse than that because there's no cavalry to call in.
Nope.
There's just not going to be anybody to call. And plus, who would you call if you knew somebody, right? Yep. Unless you've done some pre-trip homework, which hopefully you have, but you still might not have anybody to call. So a winch is only as good as an anchor point.
So you would prefer the land anchor over the burying the tire process?
Yes, okay. I would deploy that land anchor. It's made to dig in and dig deep
as you pull,
and it will slowly bring the vehicle out. It may still move. It doesn't need to reach rock bottom, but eventually it'll get down into some more solid substrate, and it'll bury pretty deep in some cases, like a sand dune or a salt flat. But it will get you extracted. Okay. And you may have to redeploy and move it further down and pull yourself a little further just to get out of the salt flat. You may have to do that several times. I've had to do that in sand dune areas where I'm just really stuck. down, and no amount of lockers, no amount of any traction aiding control systems will help me get out of that soft sand or snow. But it depends on not having any anchor points, which obviously your example in Bolivia, they had nothing to connect to. They had a nice winch, I'm assuming.
Yep. Worked great. Tire didn't work great.
See, so the wooden planks would be a commercial product, would be the MaxTrax bridging ladders that I hang on the side of my vehicle or put on the roof and take with me or mount on the back bumper. I have my MaxTrax attached to my aluminous bumper on my back bumper, and they go with me every time, along with my high lift jack, which is mounted right next to my pull pal. And I don't even have to throw them in. They're just always on the vehicle.
Okay, good. Yeah. So we've gone through repairing the tire, a jack, a little bit of winching and getting out of a situation. Right. What are the other points that the typical overlander should be taking into consideration besides those 3 points?
You know, one of the most important things that I do, and this is a great question, when you're continuing with this thread, and I like it, is in my 2-day course, I'm really teaching them about their particular vehicle, because every vehicle is different. There's only 2 things that change in my courses: the terrain and the vehicles. Okay, so when you teach somebody, well, what terrain are you going to go on and what vehicle do you have? So since we can focus on their vehicle, I want them to know all the traction aiding systems and devices that they have on their vehicles. Good. So do they have...
And how they work.
Yes, and how they work.
How they work most effectively.
And actually taking them on challenging trail in a confined and controlled situation with me helping them so that they learn those systems or those devices. So what are those systems and devices? So electronic traction control, we're finding in a lot of vehicles now, like Land Rover really invented it. Toyota has taken that to another level with their A-Track and their crawl control. So that's braking one wheel when it brakes and starts to spin, and they brake that wheel and it sends torque to the other wheel that has traction. So we need to teach people these systems. So do they have lockers? What is a locker? How does a locker work? So we do need some head knowledge to be able to understand those systems. But to your question, it's really important that they learn their vehicle. They need to learn those systems, if they have any. And what is four-wheel drive? How does that work? They need to learn that. Yeah, and when to use it. And I teach my students that they shift into four-wheel drive immediately when they get off the pavement. And if it's an easy piece of trail, they're in 4 high. If it's a challenging piece of trail right off the bat from the pavement, then maybe it's 4 low. And you go through your transmission gearings. And a lot of people don't know that with automatic transmissions these days, they can go into 4 high or 4 low, but they can also shift their transmission, even an automatic one, into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And like this vehicle that we're in right here, the Power Wagon, it has an 8-speed transmission. So when I go into 4 low, I've got 8 transmission speeds that I can pick at in 4 low. So how do you put that in their brain? They've got to drive with me. I've got to sit in their vehicle next to them, and we've got to go through all these control systems, all these added traction aiding systems and devices that they may have, whether it's lockers, positraction, A-Track, crawl control, terrain control, like on the dials on the Land Rover products now. How does all that work in different terrain? So if you go to my website, which is discoveroffroading.com, you'll see classes and tours. And the tours are specific to my graduated students. All they have to do is finish the 2-day beginning course. And then the application part is when we go to the Mojave Road, or we come to the mountains and we go on the Rubicon Trail, or we go wherever it might be, or Death Valley, or wherever that tour may be. Then they're applying their skill in a more natural terrain, because my classes are taught at a California State Vehicular Recreation Area, which gives me they're artificial, but it's very natural. It's very realistic. The rocks, the sand, the snow, the mud, that kind of thing, So I'm able to put them on different terrains in the class. but then we go out and we apply the skills better. So when we go overlanding on these tours, I help them with what they need to bring on those trips. And they need to bring a tent, you need to have this, you need to have that. And there's a list of things that they need to bring with them. Extra water, how much water, how many days are we going to camp? So that's when I tend to help them a little bit. But I don't do a lot of that beyond these events. Like at Overland Expo, I do a water disinfection clinic. Because in the survival book that I wrote, the Live Long to Wander, Basic Survival for Vehicle-Supported Adventures, there's a whole chapter on disinfecting water from natural streams and ponds and lakes so you don't get any of the bad protozoa, the bad bacteria, or the bad viruses.
Okay.
So wherever you...
Great resource.
Yeah. So that book has a whole chapter on water disinfection.
Bob, let's go through the clinics that you do. Are those, can our listeners just find those at different rallies and expos, or can they connect with you in a different way for different clinics you do outside of rallies and expos?
Great question. So let's answer this a couple of different ways. First of all, on my website, under my schedule and my calendar, I list the events that I'm going to go to. Okay. So like this weekend,
so they would know where to find you.
Yeah, months ago, I said Northwest Overland Rally, Washington State in the Cascades, email me for more information or go to this website. Okay. You'll see that on my website. So that's one way they can get where I'm going to be, but it's not about me. How can they find the clinics? I say just Google, find out where these rallies are, because there's more and more of them, and that's a real blessing to the off-road, as long as the rallies have training at them. And they're not just it's wonderful that they're a social event, because you need to have family events. Sure. One of the things I like about this event is it is really family oriented. It's dog friendly, it's pet friendly. Ray Hyland, who runs this, he's just the nicest guy, and he just loves family, and the women, the men, the families. It's just wonderful.
Where else can people find your clinics?
So on my website and on my newsletters, because if they sign up for my newsletter on my home page at discoveroffroading.com, they can go and sign up for my newsletter. It's only a training newsletter, and I only do it once a month because that's all the time I have. And it's all about a certain topic, a micro topic that I can cover in a quick read. And then I also list where I'm going and what I'm going to do and when my next 2-day course is going to go on. And I do private courses too. Some people have the money to bring me in and they only want private instruction. So I will do that at a day rate. It's not cheap, but I have done a lot of private classes.
And they can contact you.
And they can contact me.
Anything we've missed?
I'd like to say that I am a true educator. I have a background in education. I taught high school for quite a number of years. I taught community college. And I have a master's degree in instructional design. So I know how to lay out curriculum and instruction. And I think my books show that. So not that my books are better or worse than anybody else's. They're different. I'm really reaching into their knowledge, so I put it as far into long-term memory retention as I can. That's why there's little quizzes at the end of each chapter. Now, they don't have to do it. There's no requirement for them to do that. But when they have to look back into the chapter and then write out stuff, when I write, I learn. And I'm starting to pour it into their knowledge, and into their memory. And that's where you want to, as an instructional designer, I'm always trying to craft curriculum and education so it goes into their memory. I would like to say one more thing about some future plans, if you don't mind. And I don't want this to sound like an advertisement, but we're pretty excited about it. We are going to start at the SEMA show in 2019, which is the SEMA show that's not coming up in 2018 in November, but the next SEMA show. We are going to launch the Professional Off-Road Trainers Association.
Oh, great. Tell us about that.
So the books reach out to a greater community where I can't reach. That's step one. Mm-hmm. Once all the four-wheel drive books are finished, all 6 of them, then we're going to start training the trainers. Perfect. And now they can go out in a free market kind of way and start their own business. It's called the Professional Off-Road Trainers Association. So what we're going to do is do it in four-wheel drive first, get all the books written, and then we'll find the right author. Since I'm not an expert in each of these, we're going to find an author to duplicate the books in all of those 5 vehicle categories.
Okay, great. So any other resources or links that people should check out?
Just go to discoveroffroading.com right now. And we'll be announcing anything new on discoveroffroading.com when we come to the Professional Off-Road Trainers Association. It starts to become more of a reality. So I'll dissolve Off-Road Safety Academy because I don't want to be in competition with our local trainers. It won't be about me. I'll be running the organization. It's all about them to get them out. And maybe it won't be a full-time career for them. Maybe it's a way for them to train on the weekends and still have a day job and maybe pay for their off-roading habit, right? It's a way to make some money. Some people will probably take it to a higher level and actually become full-time four-wheel drive instructors like I am.
Yep.
And reach a market segment in their local community that actually pays for the lights to stay on in their house and pays the bills. It just depends on how far they want to take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I really like the camper. Anything you'd like to say about four-wheel drive camper?
Yeah. We're sitting in my four-wheel drive camper,
yeah, it's great,
recording this episode, and we have been trailer folks and pop-up tent people for many years. I still have my trailer. I love trailers. I still have my rooftop tent that I can put back on the trailer. Right now I'm using my trailer as my kind of all my gear for training goes in there. But we're sitting in my new four-wheel drive camper. I really saved a lot of pennies. This is what I always wanted. And it's sitting on a Ram Power Wagon, which again, I researched both the camper and the vehicle platform. In my opinion, and it can be hotly contested, of course, but in my opinion, for what I do, this vehicle platform was what I really needed to make it comfortable for me to go to these shows and teach my off-roading. The Ram Power Wagon off the showroom floor, in my humble opinion, there is almost no second place for torque, for horsepower, for off-road trail-worthy features like solid front axle, great electronic traction control, lockers front and rear, a winch off the showroom floor, and articulation in a proprietary suspension that Ram developed just for the Power Wagon so that it has this very flexy suspension for off-roading. This is their off-roading truck. And I kind of ruined the suspension by putting a heavy camper on the back, but I put some airbags on it, made it right as rain, and I know that it's a very heavy vehicle, and I wheel it in that regard because I know it is heavy. But I love this platform. So thank you for asking me about it. Yeah. These are 2 brands that I really believe in. Fiat Chrysler Automotive did a great job with the Power Wagon platform. Yep. It is really the Rubicon of trucks. It has every trail-worthy feature that the Rubicon Wrangler has in it. And then I picked four-wheel drive camper because of its quality build. I actually videotaped this camper being built completely and wrote an article on the web with the video on, because I write for Outdoor by 4 magazine, which people can see me. I write there. I'm their columnist for training in Outdoor X4. That's how it's pronounced, Outdoor by 4 magazine. So Frank Ledwell is the editor of that magazine and owner, and I write for him. And we did a thing on this camper on its build, all the way from them making the aluminum frame to its finishing components.
That's
all
a lot
the way
of fun.
through.
Where do we find that video?
It's on Outdoor by 4 website.
Perfect.
So outdoorx4.com. Can see the build on this camper. And I like this camper because it was light. It was made for off-roading because I really put my stuff through the ringer. I take stuff on hard trails. And when I pop up this camper, there's no dust in here. And that's so important when I'm enveloped in dust clouds all day long on a dusty trail in the desert and I want to sleep or make my steak inside my camper. I don't have to clean anything inside here when I pop it up because it's so well sealed. In fact, you cannot pop up the top with the door closed. It's so vacuum sealed.
Really?
You cannot put, there's not enough air in here.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
You can't pop it up. So, and it won't go closed either with the door closed. You have to open the door to let it collapse down.
Nice.
That's how sealed it is.
That's great. All right,
Yeah.
so let's wrap it up with two fun questions we always close
All right.
every interview with. What is your favorite drink in the morning to get you going?
Coffee.
Perfect.
I'm a black coffee, no cream guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what's a favorite beverage at night to wind down after a long day on the road, or in this case, a long day of training?
I got to say, I love my little bit of cognac in the evening with a cigar.
Okay.
Around a campfire with good people.
Yeah.
You know,
good.
Students or otherwise.
Perfect.
Good questions.
Bob, thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
taking
much.
the time. We're humbled you've taken the time.
Lisa and Chris, such a good job.
Yeah,
it's
thank
an
you.
honor to be a part of your interview. Thank you so much for choosing me.
You're welcome.
I
Thanks for
appreciate
joining
it.
us.
All right. All the best.
Wow. We hope you enjoyed that episode and gained some valuable knowledge, or maybe even answered some questions that you had. We love to bring these education episodes to you, so send us your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes like this one that really pack a powerful punch with that kind of quality information that Bob just shared with us.
So I was flipping through the books. I came out with a lot of information, just like for myself. If I was ever in a situation and let's say you might have had too much tequila one night and you've passed out, I could just go to our books and I confidently can say that I could probably get us out of something.
It spells it out for you. There's pictures, very easy to read language. They're awesome. Bob really did a great job putting these books together. You need to get these books. Run over to the show notes page. All the information, direct link to Bob's.
So like I was saying, check out our show notes for this episode at ghteoverland.com. Click on podcasts, then select the Bob Wohlers episode. All the details to Bob's books and any helpful links for this episode are already there for you.
Yep. And again, thank you, Bob, for taking the time to sit down and chat with us. That was awesome. Greatly appreciate it.
Now, before you race off, it would mean the world to us, and I mean the entire overlanding globe, if you'd share the podcast, subscribe, rate, and review us. Give GHT Overland some love so we can reach as many overlanders as possible, passing on priceless experience, knowledge, and stories of overlanders doing good in the world. Thank you, and we will see you next Thursday for a shiny new episode of the GHT Overland Podcast. What are you waiting for? Go give us some podcast love with a subscribe, rate, and review. Bye.